Okay, welcome to geometry. It is unit 4, the beginning of the second semester, and we're going to be talking about congruent figures, moving into congruent triangles. Again, this is unit 4. We're going to be talking about congruent figures. Congruent is a word you are very familiar with. The symbol for congruent looks like that. Let me write it over here so you can see it clear. Here's congruent. What does congruent mean? Congruent means you have the same size and the same shape. Same size, same shape. So let's look at some examples. All right. Again, congruent figures have the same size and the same shape. So let's figure out if some of these figures are congruent. All right, I'm going to start with this green triangle here, and voila. They are congruent. They obviously have the same size, and they have the same shape. If I move one right on top of the other, I only see one figure. So they are congruent. Let's check out the circles here. Let me move one of the circles. Ooh, one on top of each other, you only see one figure. So obviously they are congruent as well. I'm going to move to the stars next to see if the stars are congruent. Here is my first star. Here is the second star. And let's hope, voila, perfect matchup. So those figures, again, are congruent. I'm starting to get worried about these triangles here because it seems like one side is longer than the other. But let me see what I can do to try to get these triangles. Whoa, well, I definitely can rotate it. Nothing says that, hey, you can't rotate the figures, so I'm rotating the figures. Let me see if I can put it on top. Oops, not yet. Hold it, let me see if I can do a little bit more rotation. And I did. So the four figures that we have are congruent figures. What are congruent figures? Same size and same shape. All right. Now there's something that we need to remember about corresponding congruent figures. Congruent figures should have corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. We know that corresponding angles should definitely match up. So let's take a look. I want to look at this green triangle first and see if I can kind of rotate this triangle to fit on top of the other triangle. Oh, wow. So, folks, when I did that, the angles matched up. I'm going to move this back over again. And clearly, this angle here is 80 degrees. And it definitely matches up with its corresponding part. This angle right here is 40 degrees. And this angle here is 60 degrees. So corresponding angles must be congruent. $80, 60, and 40. Does that add up to 180? Yes, it does. All right. Let's take a look at the circles. I can see in the circle that the radius of this circle is 6 centimeters. Let's move this one over. Voila. They have the same radius. So those figures are also congruent. Now, here we go with our stars. No measurements on the stars, but we actually could measure the angles. But one star fits on top of the other star. They are congruent. Now, we got to match up this. I got a 90, a 30, and a 60. What is the marking to show an angle is 90 degrees? Correct, it is a box. We generally don't write 90 degrees. We normally just have the box there. So let me move 90 degrees out of the way. Let me move the little dot. so it can stay there for now. All right, so I need to rotate this triangle. How can I rotate this? There we go, something like that. Yay! 30, 60, 90, all the angles match up. So these triangles are congruent. All right. Before we get started in our new lesson, we're going to review some of our problem-solving skills. Let me click off of the problem-solving skills that we're going to be using second, third, and fourth. First of all, we have this little acronym. It's called GAS. Everybody GAS. Okay. So when we think about our problem-solving skills, we're going to use these skills, and we have been using these skills for everything that we do. So we're going to start off with a G. Give me a G, G. All right, so what's important in our first problem-solving skill is that we figure out what is actually given in the problem. What is given in the problem. All right, so you see this right here. Our keyword for G is going to be given. We always want to figure out what we're given and what we can conclude. Sometimes we're given a picture, and sometimes it has markings. Sometimes we're given information, and we need to show what's congruent by vocabulary words like midpoint or bisector. So always consider what am I given and what can I conclude from what I'm given. All right, we read graphs from left to right. We read books from left to right, and we're going to read this chart from left to right. All right. A. What is the question asking? A. Woo, different color pen. Asking. A-S-K-I-N-G. Sometimes the question can ask us to solve for X, and that's great. We're done. Sometimes the question asks us to find the angle, and so we want to make sure we know what the question is asking. All right, you want to take a guess at what the S stands for? Oh, who said that? Someone said it. We have to sketch or set up the problem. Sketch and set up. So, sketch and set up the problem. These are our problem-solving skills. All right, we figure out what's given. What can we conclude from what's given? What are they asking? Sketch the picture and set up the picture. All right, what's P? Oh my goodness, last but not least, P. All right, folks, what we need to do is we're going to have to go back and plug in the answer. Why do we do that? Because we need to know if all the work we did made sense. So we're going to do a plug it in, plug it in. Here we go. So these are problem-solving skills. So when I say let's guess, we think about what's given, what we can conclude, what it's asking, our sketch, our setup, plug it back in to make sure it's reasonable. That makes us solid math students. Here we go. This lesson in this chapter is about congruent triangles. First thing we're going to see is a lot of triangles with a lot of markings. And it's not an Indian tribe. It's the markings show congruency. So here in this slide it says how to read the markings. Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to know that you must, what is this word right here? That word is match. And we must match corresponding markings and write what we call a congruency statement. Gosh, that's a big word, congruency statement. What's that? Well, it's no more than saying something is congruent to something else. Let's kick it off with these triangles. First of all, I'm going to call this triangle right here triangle A, B, C. All right? So what I want to do is I want to look at triangle ABC and I want to match up the angles. Angle A has two arcs. So What in my other figure has two arcs? Angle what? Exactly, angle B. All right, so I need to make sure that when I name my second triangle, that the parts correspond with the first triangle. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle A matches up with D, so I'm going to go with D first. My next letter is B. Angle B corresponds with what? Don't look at the orientation of the triangles, just go for the markings. And yes, it matches up with angle E. And last but not least, angle C matches up with angle D. Okay? So my triangle, look at this, triangle ABC, which is what I have right here, is going to be congruent with triangle. It'd be nice if I wrote the F that goes with the C. And it'd be nice if I wrote the E that goes with the B. Sorry about that. And I'll tell you what, let's just make it a tad bit neater. A goes with D, B goes with E, and C goes with F. All right. So that's D, E, F. So what can we conclude in this? Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. I should be able to slide them right over each other and see one figure when they are actually congruent. So now I showed you the angles, but what do we see right here? We see sides. Let's check it out. This says that side AB, here it is right here with one mark, is congruent to side DE with one mark. I like it, I like it, I like it. It says side BC is congruent to side EF. BC and EF. BC has 3 hash marks or tick marks. 1, 2, 3. So EF needs to have 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Last but not least, AC and DF. AC, 2 tick marks. DF, 2 tick marks. Well, what did we say earlier? We said if figures are congruent and corresponding parts are congruent. All the angles are congruent and all the sides are congruent. Therefore, these triangles are congruent. Okay? This says time for you to try. What segment is congruent to segment RS? Let's see. Well, the triangles are turned around, and so I do not want to rotate it. So I'm going to look at the congruent statement that says triangle JKL is congruent to triangle TRS. When I look at it, RS are the last 2 letters in the triangle on the right. So it should be congruent to the last 2 letters on the triangle on the right. So RS is congruent to what? Woohoo! KL. Okay? Now let's look at angle S. Angle S, which is on the end. It's congruent to the one on the end, which is angle L. All right. So, folks, that concludes our introduction to congruent triangles. See you next time for part 2.